Everyone, today we have Mike Reed, the founder of Micro Gainz. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. Let's dive right into it. So, what are some other things outside of business that people should know about you? Interests, hobbies, family, etc.
Well, obviously, I'm a weightlifter outside of this, power lifter. I'm also really passionate about road cycling, very passionate about that. In fact, I didn't lift for the last couple of years because I was just focusing on cycling and racing and things like that. And this year, I actually trying to implement both in like a hybrid strategy of lifting 1 or 2 days a week and cycling to try to not lose all those gains whenever you cycle by not weightlifting. So that's been tough. Trying to do both. But yeah, I'm married. I'm a father of 3 boys. We live in central Pennsylvania. And I do Micro Gainz full time. And my wife actually, she stays home with the kids. It's pretty exciting stuff every day, working on Micro Gainz, and she ends up helping quite a bit as well. But mostly, yeah, it's like Micro Gainz, like 80% of the time it seems like. And then, obviously working out is involved. And then for any games, I just got into playing Fortnite with my son. So he plays Switch and I play on PlayStation, and we do some Fortnite there. So I'm getting into that a little bit, although I'm not that great. So working on it though.
Nice. What age are the boys?
They are 3, 6, and 8.
Okay, nice. All right, let's move on to what were you doing as like your career before Micro Gainz?
Yeah, I was a grocery store manager. So I've been in grocery retail business since I was 16 for about 15 years. Started out as a packer for groceries, cashier, stocker, and then eventually started for Walmart back in 2011 after I graduated college. I got a business degree from Penn State and started there as an assistant manager and worked my way up to co-manager at Walmart. Went to another company called Wise Markets, which is like a Northeast regional chain. Worked there at a grocery store for 5 years, and then eventually left to do Micro Gainz.
Interesting. All right. So when did you sort of think of the idea of Micro Gainz? What did you really see in the market that led you to thinking that something like micro change plates were a good idea?
So back in like 2016, I was weightlifting. I was following like a linear progression program, doing squats, bench, deadlift, overhead press, adding 5 pounds every other session to try to build up strength. Eventually, I plateaued on bench and overhead press. You can only add 5 pounds forever, or else you'd be bench pressing your car out there if you could add 5 every session. And I thought, it's tough to get the sets and reps that I want. It's not about like the most weight you can pull or push. It's like I want to get 3 sets of 5, and I was getting 4 reps, 2 reps, 3 reps, things like that. So I remember going on to Amazon and looking for fractional plates. I think I probably typed in 1.25 pound plate. There was a few options. Everything was made overseas, and I thought it was kind of expensive. So I thought, I can probably make these myself. So I actually contacted a plasma cutter that cuts steel, and he made a couple prototypes for me when I was thinking about roughly what I wanted to do. And I eventually went to a laser cutter right after that, because laser is a little more accurate than plasma. And I had 25 of each size cut for the original Micro Gainz weight plates out of steel. That was 25 quarters, halves, 3/4, and 1 pounders. We actually didn't have the 1.25 until later. So I brought all that steel back to my house, and I hung some plywood in my shed and put a bunch of nails in it. And then I hung the plates on the nails. And then I spray painted them with like one of those like high velocity, low pressure guns with an air tank, and then painted them black, waited a little bit, coated it again, weighted it, had to flip every plate over, had to try to get inside the little corners and stuff like that. And then eventually after all that, we had, which would only be like 8 sets of 8, because most people were selling them in sets of 8 with the 2/4 halves, 2 3/4, and 2 1/2. Came up with the name Micro Gainz, and bought some stickers and some little logo stickers, and stickers that actually said what the weight was. And then we stickered them. And then I started selling on eBay in February of 2017. We sold 3 or 4 sets the entire month, maybe not even that much, maybe 2 sets. And I think I listed it on eBay as an 8-plate set. And we sold, I remember my very first sale, because we sold 2 sets to one customer. The very first sale I ever had, I was at the grocery store. I got a notification on my phone that we sold 2 sets to one customer, and I'm losing it. Like, oh my God, look at this, because I was just going to make it for myself and then use it, maybe sell a couple on the side. And then we sold 2 sets, and you get that instant validation feeling of like, hey, this is probably worth it. We were trying to be competitive with the other companies that were making fractional plates as far as price goes, added 1 1/4 after that. And then we got away from painting them myself because like back then, 2017 February. So like we would have to paint them in the fall because you can't really paint in the winter outside, can't paint inside, especially the way we were doing it. So I had to wait until like the spring to kind of load up on more plates. So really the idea for Micro Gainz came from a need for myself to try to lift a little bit more weight and add more incremental weight, knowing that like a 5-pound jump is not always possible depending on what you're doing. Yeah, you can make 5-pound jumps on squats or deadlifts for a long time, but eventually you're going to be able to, want to maybe use a 1 1/4 and go up by 2.5 or 2 or 1 pound or 3 pounds, something like that. So that's kind of how we got started.
Very cool. So you immediately thought there was a business behind your original idea, correct?
Yeah. So, and I can explain that too. So because there wasn't a lot of competition in the space, I looked around for different fractional plates. I think I saw, once again, there wasn't like a company like specializing in fractional plates. There were just like a lot of stuff. It's just like 3 or 4 of the different named companies, but they're selling the exact same plate from overseas. Or I remember going to Rogue and seeing it was like $85 for fractional plates with shipping to my house. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I remember looking at, there's a website you could check, like, and it'll give you a rough idea of how many they're selling per month. And I think I was just surprised by the amount of volume that they were doing. And I thought I can probably bite into that, especially if I can come in just underneath their price or just at their price and say, hey, ours are made in the USA. And I think that will kind of help us, that gives us like a little bit of a niche. So I realized then, especially with doing like the program I was doing, more of like a starting strength style program or strong lifts, if you've heard of those, they even recommend going up by 1.25. So I remember hearing about another program, Grayskull. There's a couple different ones, and they all suggested using fractional plates. And it was like, there wasn't great options. Like there was, people used washers, things like that. And they wanted something that was accurate. And like what I figured, I went to all like the reviews of all these companies that were selling them. I saw what was all the bad stuff and we fixed it. Like we made our plates calibrated. We made them so the paint didn't fleck off. We made it so it arrived nicely in like a nice box. Like we started checking off, we added a bag to it. So to try to add more value and try to capitalize on what other companies weren't doing well. So we could, and then that just kind of started to snowball into other products.
Makes sense. So it sounds like that those first few months, you really just had a handful of sales. Can you tell me how that first year of business ended up looking like?
Yeah, we started off, like I said, selling $100 the first month, $200 the next month. We only did eBay originally, so we didn't do a website. I didn't launch microgainz.com until 2018. Another pro tip, you don't necessarily need a website to start a business. You can get started selling on eBay like I did. We launched on Amazon in, I want to say June, July, and that's whenever sales started to kick up. I think we doubled up sales after that. And we were selling like 20, 30 units a month, maybe, not even. And maybe it went up to 30 or 40, so maybe 1 a day average. But adding to Amazon, all of our SKUs really boosted sales. By the time we got to December of the first month, we had a pretty good Christmas, to be honest. Still didn't have microgainz.com, still selling on just Amazon. And then we were able to get like our sales rank up by just having good positive reviews and just being able to ship them on time and ship them quickly and things like that. So, the first month was, or the first year, I'm sorry, was enough that it obviously kept us going into the next year, especially with how good like November, December was with those Christmas sales. And I'll say, if you want, we can put a dollar amount on it. I think we did a couple $1,000s in December, maybe $5,000, $6,000 in sales or something like that, which is crazy considering we started with like $140. So that's when I knew there was definitely like a niche to be had here.
For sure. And you didn't see other companies kind of piling on, I'm guessing.
No. Once again, most of them were either companies you've never heard of, or existing companies are like, they, like, for instance, Rogue has so many products that they don't really maybe focus on their fractional plates that much. So it helps me out that we are a fractional plate company, or essentially that's how we started. We're a little bit more than that now, that we are focused 100% on it. And when people were looking for it, and then it's like a very social media-esque item, if that makes sense. Like everyone's online kind of showing them lifting. That's a huge thing. But then adding like a little bit of Micro Gainz, it's a very like social media, like, hey, I added 2.5 pounds to my lift today. And they take a snapshot and tag us or something like that. And that just kind of all happened organically.
Very interesting. As you mentioned, it started off as just a side hustle. How were you managing your days during that time? You were obviously working probably 40 hours a week and then just coming home and doing a few hours of work each night, or how did you go about that?
That's a great question. When I was working in retail as a manager, we actually working 50 hours a week, so 5 10s. So pretty heavy. I'd wake up extra early in the morning to print off orders, And I would either try to pack them before I would go to work in the morning. If I had to work at 7, I'd wake up at 5:30 to try to get those, or I would print them out, leave them for my wife that she could pack them whenever it started to get a little heavier in business. And then I would come home after that, like work 7 to 5, come home, and then we would still have dinner, play with the kids, put the kids to bed. And then generally for a while, then I'd be working like 9 to midnights on Micro Gainz, and then waking up and doing the same thing Monday through Friday. So the only time we tried to take off was weekends because we didn't have to ship. But that was pretty much the day. So, and as once again, it'd be a couple days a week you were doing that. And then on my days off, like I would have to go pick up products, or, I might spend a little more time in the morning doing it because, or, setting up posts on Instagram or updating my listings or thinking about new products. Or I used to have to drive a couple hours just to pick up the plates. And then my days off started getting more consumed with that. And it just kind of snowballed into what it is now.
Got it. How long until you were able to hire somebody?
I hired somebody in, I want to say 2019, to do orders with me in the morning. Originally, we had people, like for a long time, I just stickered all of our plates. So we didn't have a way to like put the brand in it. So I actually hired somebody to come in and just sticker 1 pound, half pound, 3/4 pound plates. They would do that like their whole shift and then pack them up. I used to just roll them in bubble wrap. I didn't even have a box then. And I had her do that and then help with orders, which would be like 3, 4, 5 a day, sometimes less, sometimes more. And that would maybe be 2, 3 days a week, and only for a couple hours, 2, 3, 4 hours in the morning. That would help out, especially 2019, whenever it got a little bit busier and I was still working full time, but, my wife would then be, she has stuff to do. My kids, I think my kid was going to kindergarten or first grade at the time. The other kids going to preschool. So there's like a lot going on. And then I'm always worried about, did you make it to the post office? Did you get the stuff out on time? We don't want to go late with these shipments, stuff like that. So that was my first hire, a part-timer. And then I had my cousin help me as well at the end of 2019. He was helping whenever business was up, in 2020, especially when the pandemic came around.
Got it. So it was a few years before you went and got some help.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we did everything by ourselves for a long time, a couple years, 3 years, maybe.
Yeah. I'd love to know when you started feeling really confident that the business was going to make it. And then if you could also kind of explain the growth from year to year before the pandemic would be pretty interesting too, I think.
Yeah. So I think I knew Micro Gainz. I think it was definitely a side hustle all the way through 2017, 2018. And then 2019, it started to get a little bit bigger. I think from 2017, our first year, to 2018, we probably tripled or quadrupled sales. And which is like quadrupling on like a small number, it's not like we were doing, 500,000, we're doing 2 million or something. But so we did that. And then I remember my wife and I, we had to move. We moved from one job to another, and it kind of froze up Micro Gainz for a little bit. And we actually swapped our plates from a laser cut steel to more of a pressed metal. The ones you see now that have the logo pressed into it, that was a big transition. And we didn't have sales for like 2 months while we were transitioning between the two. So 2018 and 2019 ended up being pretty close to the same sales dollars. It was probably maybe a 10%, 20%, 4x increase. And it was like every month we do a couple $1,000, and then it was like, is it enough to quit your job though? And then it's like, well, if I, you always think like as an entrepreneur, oh, well, if I'm working on it full time, I can probably grow sales, versus working on it 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week and stuff like that. But it was like, just never the right moment. I think that's important to probably keep your job as long as you can. And also, save the money from your company so you don't have to live on it. Because once I have to live on it, I'm losing money to reinvest in my company. So, I worked at Micro Gainz before I quit. I didn't put a single dollar into anything but Micro Gainz for the first 4 years. Nothing. We never took any money out, not a dollar, and rotated it back in. So I was living off of my salary, not taking any money from Micro Gainz, so we could come out with different products, buy bigger quantities of stuff so we could lower our prices or increase our margins. And it was definitely heading in a nice trajectory into 2020. Still like not quite where I wanted it to be. I was thinking that it seemed like it was leveling off, and we started thinking of maybe some new products to add to the mix right up until like the pandemic hit in March. We obviously started to see sales grow from there.
Well, speaking of 2020, can you tell us how 2020 ended up changing your business then?
Yeah. So into 2020, we grew sales by another 4 or 5x in 2020. And it was like sales were okay in January, okay in February. Then March, they started to tick up a little bit. April, it really started going. May was heavy. June was very heavy, to the point where, I was spending all of my free time on Micro Gainz, 100% of it. Like there was nothing else to do. It was, waking up in the morning, getting orders. It was staying up till midnight every single night, 5 nights a week. And then on my days off, spending most of my time on Micro Gainz. And I had hired, I think, 3 or 4 people at that point to pack products, do orders, and do all of the productions. People were buying our fractional plates as like 5-pound plates. They'd buy a set of fractional plates because it was 5 pounds. They'd buy 2 of them because then it would be like a 5-pound plate. You couldn't find them after like June, July. So we added 2.5s, 5s, and 10s, which we had never sold before. And they sold like wildfire. We had solid steel ones that were made, and then we stickered them like we started doing before. Solid steel, powder coated, 2.5, then a 5, and then we added a 10. And they were selling like crazy on Amazon because you couldn't find anything. And we didn't even have them primed. Like we were just filling them from the house. So, I mean, you can go back to some of my Instagram content from 2020, and it's like so much production. And we added like a pad printer. So instead of stickering, we actually printed like white logos and stuff on it. And that helped as well. Yeah, it sales really blew up. And we mostly on the back of those 2.5s, 5s, and 10s. I mean, we had some great sales for 8 plate sets, 1.25s, things like that. And that really trickled over into probably all the way through May of 2021. And then we really saw a steep decline last year in 2021 over the summer. I think a lot of people went on vacation. A lot of people, well, for the first times they couldn't go in 2020. A lot of gym products from overseas were coming back in stock, and we saw a very steep decline in our 2.5s, 5s, and 10s, which we had to steadily increase in price as the time went on because like steel kept on getting crazier and crazier. And I talked about this on the last podcast we were on, that steel was $440 a ton in August 2020. By August 2021, it was $2,000 a ton. And we make a lot of products out of steel. So it's like, there's no way you can absorb that and keep it competitive. So as our prices went up, some cast iron and cheaper options came back into play. And then of course, our sales kind of plummeted on those. Now our fractional plates have kind of stayed the same for a long time because once again, there's not quite as much competition. But our 2.5s, 5s, and 10s saw kind of a beating on that. So then we started to lean into some other products. We came out with dumbbell handles in 2020, which actually did pretty well. And then once again, there wasn't a lot of options.
So what all does Micro Gainz sell now?
So we offer fractional plates. So we offer 1/4 pound all the way through 10-pound plates right now for barbells. We offer dumbbell plates, which are clamp-on dumbbell plates that clamp on the handle of most dumbbells. And we offer those in 1/2, 1.25, 2.5 pound size for a banded version, our original version. And we have a new spring-loaded version that came out a couple months ago that are available in 1 and 1.25 pound. We offer a premium dumbbell handle, and we make those. That's made out of solid steel. We make those. That's all made in the USA. We make a deadlift jack called the Jack Stand, made out of wood. It's pretty cool. We have a couple different things. We did some collaborations with Plate Snacks. We've done a collaboration with Gym Pin where we sell Micro Gainz Gym Pin. So we sort of went into a mode of what all can we do to help you like build strength and break plateaus on any way that you lift. So now we can help you if you lift with your barbell, if you lift with your dumbbell, or if you lift with a weight machine. Micro Gainz can help you get over those plateaus with what we offer.
Cool. Do you have a favorite product release over the years?
It's probably the new dumbbell plate that we released in September 2021. That's something that I've worked on since 2016, believe it or not. We had the original version, which you might be familiar with, has bands. And we came out with that because it was too hard to manufacture something. I didn't quite have the money, to be honest, to manufacture it the way that I wanted to, like the new version with the spring. So that did okay for us. We released a couple different sizes, and we were kind of the only person in the game for that, for dumbbell plates that clamped onto handles. And I had worked on this project for a while of this one with an internal spring that was a little bit cleaner, smaller, thinner. Everything else it's a really nice product, but it was a big investment to get started with it. And we finally had the capital to do that. And then, it was released in 2021, September, and it has come to much fanfare. It's people really like it. It's probably my favorite product that we sell now because it's so unique. And people really see the value in it. And it's a great way to add incremental weight to your dumbbell whenever you just can't add weight to a stationary item like that.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite product you offer too. We've talked about this on previous podcasts as well, but can you share some failure stories or just some mistakes that you made as you were building this company?
Yeah, I think oftentimes we get like too in over our head, basically. We want to I want to get my hands in like so many different items and things like that we come out with things that I just didn't like as much, or we'd continue to modify over time. We've had some products that, like the dumbbell handles that we originally sold, like they rusted quicker than expected. And I don't want to do that, right? We were sending them out. I got them from a guy that was making them here in Pennsylvania, where I'm at. And we were buying from him wholesale. but he didn't coat them. But he wasn't really running an equipment company. He was kind of just trying to do it to make some money because of the pandemic. And I thought they were really nice, and they are. And that was probably a mistake looking back. We've had to refund some customers. Then we started to have to spray a clear coat on them every single time, which was adding some work to it. That was kind of a big one. One of the mistakes we made, we're probably still paying for it, is going really deep into the 2.5s, 5s, and 10s, where we ordered a lot. I'm still sitting on inventory that I ordered back in beginning of 2021. So we're in April 2022. I still have inventory I ordered a year ago. We started ordering 500 plates and they all sold out in 2 weeks. And then we were 1,000 plates and they all sold out in 3 weeks. And then we were 2,000 plates at a time and they were selling out. And then, back then it's like, well, hey, here's the price of steel. It's going to go up again. Do you want to hedge your bets and order more? And it's like, yeah, sure. We're going to do that. And then looking back, I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have, we're still sitting on some 2.5s and 5s that I've had for a year or a little less than a year because the bottom fell out last summer. And we've been kind of climbing back out of that when we saw a decline of 80-90% in those 3 products, the 2.5, the 5, and the 10. We've been climbing back out with our new products, the dumbbell plate, the jack stand, the handles, and things like that. So yeah, that's one that is a cautionary tale of now I have some capital tied up in that and I can't move them. I can reduce the price a little bit, but obviously you don't want to lose money on them. So we've been slowly working our way through that. Another big mistake was probably getting that pad printer. Was we thought it was going to be better than stickering, but it was such a pain of mixing the ink up and using it. And then there'd be dirt that would get in the ink and it would scratch every time you pick up the image, it would show a scratch mark. We were ordering these new little cliches all the time because they were snapping and they'd be scratched up and they looked bad. And oh my gosh, it was such a pain. And I wish I would just put a lot of laser back then. I have a Laguna laser now that we etch all of our plates with. And honestly, it would have been worth, I'm sure I would have looked at it then and been like, it's too much, but going back, man, that pad printer was a mistake. Because it just, I don't know, it seemed like the right opportunity. And I'm like, I wish I would have bought the laser back then. I would have paid for itself 10 times over. So we definitely made our fair share of mistakes over the years. We just try to learn from them and move on.
How much does a laser like that cost?
One that we have is around $10,000. And it's a 2-foot by 3-foot table. And it's pretty sweet. I mean, it doesn't cut through metal. It's not one of those lasers. That's a very expensive laser. That's probably a $20,000 laser for the same exact laser. This is a CO2 laser, and you can etch glass, plastic. You can etch wood. And then what we do with our plates is they're coated. So we etch kind of through the coating so you can read Micro Gainz or 2.5. And that's one of the big things that we do. We can do tons of custom stuff. The jack stand, we now laser. I used to actually have a hot brand that I stamped on the jack stands. And now we just run them in the laser and zap it through. We used the laser to do Christmas ornaments last year. We did, crazily enough, seems like a weird thing, we did barbell related Christmas ornaments, a barbell, a dumbbell, a kettlebell, and they sold crazy good.
What? I didn't see those.
Yes, yeah, and they were pretty sweet. So they were made out of wood, off of plywood. We cut them out, and people went crazy for those last year. And we were actually borderline using that laser all the time for ornaments last November, December. This year, I'm actually going to try to do ornaments in June and July. So actually, we might order a second laser the way that business has picked up. So.
That's awesome. All right. 2022, your business seems like it's pretty healthy. You have a number of different products out, and it sounds like you really have an identity as well with more than just the micro plates. Do you have any plans to add more products within this year that you could share with us?
We do. Going back to the fractional plates, we're going to release these in the next couple of weeks. I haven't told many people, but we're going to come out with 1-inch fractional plates. So standard bar fractional plates. So we'll have a 1-inch hole in the middle instead of the 2-inch hole. Believe it or not, there's a lot of demand for that product. And if you can do the internet search, they don't exist.
I believe it.
You can't get them. The smallest you can probably get is a 1 1/4, a cast iron one that you might find at Walmart that spins on the weight. Real cheap, doesn't weigh what it says it weighs. So we're actually coming out with and I'm actually going today to pick up some of the prototypes with a 1-inch fractional plate set, and that'll be 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1 pound, 1.2, 5 pounds, same thing. And we're going to end up being able to charge the exact same price for it. So that's something cool we're coming out with. We've been looking heavily into dumbbell handles again. So we kind of got in and out of it because the prices went up and down, but we're looking at aluminum dumbbell handles, which is something unique. No one's really doing that. We have a thick grip dumbbell. I think I put it once or twice on my Instagram talking about a thick grip 2-inch dumbbell handle. And it's really cool because we're able to shrink fit Micro Gainz plates on it. And those are the plate stops, are the Micro Gainz plates. So that's going to be cool. And then we've also talked about doing some cast aluminum dumbbell handles. We can cast the whole thing and then get it machined. And, aluminum, it's light, it's very strong. They make F-150s out of it now. So you might think that like something's going to happen to it, but most people, like if we can offer it at a pretty reasonable price and it's made in the USA, something that we want to try, I guess, and kind of test the market. And the nice thing is I test the market a lot on certain products where we can make a couple. I don't have to buy hundreds or thousands to test it. We can make 5 and I can try. Just like with like the jack stand where we kind of edited. I don't know if you saw any of the stories we were posting about making a guitar pattern on it. So that was something different. A lot of people that says it looks like a Stratocaster guitar. And we decided to etch like a guitar on the background of it. And it looks really cool. It's going to be the same price. In fact, Matt Pendergraph already committed to buying the very first one. So I'm going to hold him to it. But yeah, so, coming up with unique stuff like that. And then probably trying to get the biggest one is going to be the 2.5 pound dumbbell plate, which I get asked for on a daily basis. The reason we didn't come out with that originally is because honestly, there wasn't a ton of interest in a 2.5 when we made the banded version. And we eventually came out with the banded version. And I can't believe how well it sold because I told people for a long time, it's going to be too bulky. Like you're not going to like it. And we sell a ton of them. So I had already planned on the spring-loaded one, not knowing how much 2.5s we would sell. So we have the 1 and the 1.25 version, but the 2.5 pound dumbbell plate will come out this year. I'm shooting for summer. It has been a major headache with some manufacturing constraints with developing that product. You would think it wouldn't be that much harder, just make it bigger or wider. You can't just make the same product wider because it would be too thick. And then you're double the thickness of a 1.25. So you couldn't fit your hand on the bar. So we have to make the whole thing bigger. And then whether or not that gets machined, which adds a bunch of costs. So you and I actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I was telling you about the 2.5. And I'm thinking, I have to make it affordable enough of a price people are still going to want to pay and see the value in it. So it's just taken an extra long time to come out with that product, but it is coming. And I think people are going to really enjoy it when it comes out.
Yeah, I think if you can get that priced right, it'll do very, very, very well. It's hard to plan for 5 years, but any predictions about where you'll be in 5 years or where you'd like to be, I should say?
I think we'd like to be definitely, a better known company or more of a force in powerlifting. I think fractional plates have come a long way in just the last 5 years. Even if you don't use them or don't understand why you would need it, I think a lot of lifting, you're trying to get away from the egocentric part and people are just trying to make small gains. And people get so frustrated whenever they can't lift a little more weight. Maybe they quit. Maybe they get injured because they lifted too much. I think fractional plates are having their day in the sun, so to speak. However, I want to expand to more products to be a more complete company so you can get everything from us. And, I've already, like the day I bought the domain microgainz.com, I bought the domain macrogainz.com thinking that like, oh yeah, someday I'm going to need both. And, with a Macro Gainz brand, I'd like to have the 25s, the 35s, the 45s, the 55s, so you can outfit your whole gym in a Micro Gainz setup, whether or not that's cast iron, laser cut steel, or maybe bumper plate or something like that. So we'd like to become more of a complete company where instead of just picking and choosing a few items, you can actually outfit your whole gym with stuff that we offer. Like I haven't thought about doing bigger things like racks or barbells or anything. There's just too many companies that do a great job with that. We'll always do more nichier items that I get, questions a couple times a month, maybe once a week about like a product that someone has in mind. And they're like, hey, do you think you could make this or help us with this? And my question always back is like, hey, how big do you think the market is? So I think Micro Gainz will probably always be known for more nichier stuff. And always, at least we're going to try to make it as long as we can, made in the USA, as long as it's, continues to be affordable and we can source things here. I think that hopefully we can be one of the top brands that are made in the USA. And I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I mean, not that I wouldn't, like Rogue or Titan to buy Micro Gainz and we could be like a subsidiary of one of those companies or something. But I don't know if I see that happening. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there and there hasn't been a ton of like conglomerates yet. Mostly everyone is like their own company. So I'm sure there's going to come a day whenever big companies start buying up the smaller ones instead of trying to come out with products themselves. So I'd like to also have like a better international presence. I get so many questions about overseas. Like if you think we have a lot of options here for stuff, they have so much less in other countries, Mexico, Canada, the UK, Australia, lots of questions. And I send a lot of stuff overseas, even the dumbbell plates, even though they lift in kilos, they're willing to buy the pound stuff because they don't have options. So figuring out a way to expand our international footprint is going to be key to our success in the long term.
Okay, interesting. And international would be cool. There's a lot of other larger companies who talk about that, but it's cool to hear someone like you saying that. Let's move on to just some more miscellaneous questions then. So you've put a pretty big focus on social media over the years, and you mentioned it earlier that your product plays well on social media. Could you just tell me how important social media is to your business? And really is some of that success that you've had over the years because of the persistence you had in that area?
I think it is. I think social media is an extremely important part of everyone's business. If you're not involved in some type of social media, you're probably not growing like the way you would like to. We got onto Instagram. We had a Facebook first, then an Instagram, which we post to. Like you just said, I'm on it a lot. Like I post pretty much daily, and I've done daily for like 5 years. Like we have like 2,000 posts in the last 5 years. It's almost every single day, extremely consistent. And I think it's important for people to be able to come onto a platform and search up Micro Gainz and see what you're doing or see what we're doing. And then if you already have the product, you can come on and follow us and see what we do every day. You can see us make plates. You can see us ship out orders. You can see us talk about new products. You can see us do everything. Like if you notice, we don't really try to be like very salesy on our posts either. I don't try to sell something on every single post, not at all. In fact, those posts do the worst. So when you come out with a post, I'm like, hey, new product drop, check it out, 12 likes, no comments. Like no one wants to, steer clear. But if I'm just talking about, hey, this is this is how we make the dumbbell plate. This is how we do this here. Or, just in general, this is me lifting or something. I get way more engagement on that. People don't like to be sold to. So it's more of like an information base. And we post some of that same information to Facebook. So we have a different group over there. I post similar information to LinkedIn. And then we obviously got involved in TikTok last year. You can see that we've gotten into those like funnier style videos, the reels, the TikToks that you can kind of import between the two, just kind of poking more fun at some of the stuff that we do. And I think those are great for engagement too. People see we're humans behind it. Like, you don't probably see Rogue posting on TikTok all the time, like funny TikToks. It's just probably not happening. But the smaller companies like us, it's cool to kind of see a face behind it where some people maybe think that we're bigger than we are. And then conversely, some people think that we're smaller than we actually are. So it is nice to say like, oh, there's Mike. He's the face of Micro Gainz. It's not just the product and we're this big corporation or anything like that. It's very important to have that presence there though. I mean, that's a lot of marketing. Almost all your marketing is done online or done on a Facebook, Google-esque. And you want a place for people to land. Like it's taken me, I've had Instagram for 5 years and we're at like 4,500 followers. Like doesn't seem like a lot for grinding and posting 2,000 times. Like I see people that have double, triple the following, 12 posts, 160 posts, 180 posts. They've got 38,000 followers. I'm like, how? Like I've done what everyone says to do, right? Post every single day and like your followers are going to come. And it just takes a long time. Like I could easily buy 10,000 followers and we would look more legitimate having 14,000 followers, but I just don't think it's right. Like I'd rather have a community that wants to be involved and is interested about our stuff and not like lie about it and think that we're bigger than we actually are. Cause it doesn't really help your metrics because you'll see somebody has 100,000 followers and their last post got 14 likes. So, they're not real people. It just makes you seem like you're bigger or whatever. So, but yeah, definitely important. People are super interested in the behind the scenes of stuff. And then I get DMs all the time asking just customer service questions or can you make this? Or, hey, what about my order? Or, hey, that was really funny. Or, stuff like that. I love to communicate with my audience and the community around Micro Gainz and answer questions right away for these people. So it's like a very instant validation for customers.
Cool. And I see a lot of other small companies not utilizing social media like you do. And I'm surely that costs them in the long run.
I would think, on my stuff, like you can go back through post after post and I comment back on everybody. Like it blows my mind that people will comment on a post of yours that says, oh, cool product, or wow, that's neat, or anything. And you don't even comment back. Like they took the time to say how cool it was or ask you a question and it took you 4 weeks to come back and say anything. Like this is your audience. This is who you communicate with. Right. Go back to my post. You're going to see a comment back on everything for like years because I'm interested in building up that community and answering people's questions. And it's important.
All right. Some of the feedback I get from this podcast are people saying, I really like the podcast because I want to eventually start my own thing, or I want to eventually work in the industry. So hearing everybody's stories are really cool. I thought it was really insightful earlier when you said, when you're first starting to create the product, it was basically because of a need that you wanted to be solved. And I think that's a good lead into our next question is just DIY versus buy. We talked about this in the most recent Inventors podcast. but could you just go over your thoughts on DIY versus buy in terms of the home gym space?
Sure. As we mentioned at the beginning, I was a DIYer. I DIY'd my own weight plates to make, and they eventually the DIY trends towards a business. And a lot of products we come out with still are DIY related products, like those aluminum dumbbell handles. I have a few prototypes. That's a DIY product before we have it like commercialized. I have my father-in-law, I call him my R&D manager. I go to him with an idea, he can turn it into something, and then I end up helping. I make it like nicer and sellable and stuff like that. I'm very ingrained in do it yourself. We do so many things ourselves to try to like make it more affordable and buy the machines and things like that to make it happen for us. I think that it's important to have the DIY community because it's going to grow so many businesses in the future. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, I don't think everybody is going to make it, even if they don't. I recently posted one about like the jack stand DIY, and then a gentleman that made one out of looked like maybe a 2x6. Yeah. And he cut the shape out to pull the jack back. I mean, there's a lot of people in the comments that, oh, DIY, but like how many of them will probably actually DIY it? Not as many people have a bandsaw in the garage or a 2x6s or have the knowledge and things like that. I think a lot of people like it because it's cheaper, in most cases. It doesn't mean it's necessarily a better product, but it is a great way to get started on a business. If you can make something that isn't already out there or update something. Our original DIY dumbbell plates, I still have it. It is like a crude, we like tin snipped it out of metal, put it together with this spring in front of it to make it work. And it actually works. It clamps on, it weighs like 0.12 pounds and very much DIY, we would have, and that was back in 2016. I thought about this like dumbbell clamp on thing, and that transformed into an entire business. So definitely don't want to knock anybody trying things because it will definitely turn into something. It like the other guys mentioned on the previous podcast, when it gets sketchy, like Jason mentions, if you're copying the exact same product and you're making it the exact same way, I understand that can be sketchy. Or I think sometimes there's like a quality perception of like, our jack stand, for instance, it's made out of one piece of solid hardwood. It's much thicker. It's, we had to cut it out of a solid board. We have boards that we plane down, and then we cut it out with a bandsaw and drilled in for a metal coupler. So we could, hand cut a pipe to put inside of it. And then we hand sanded it and we varnished it and we lasered it. Like there's a lot that goes into it. And, it's just not the same as, cutting out just a quick piece of wood and popping it under there. I think that's sometimes where you can be like, oh, well, man, this guy, it's like the comparo of like, it's not really apples to apples, I guess, if that makes sense. So I think that's where the DIYers probably need to be a little more careful whenever they put one against the other, because like, is it really apples to apples? Or is it like, this product is similar, but like it's a lot different. There's a lot more thought and effort and things like that put into this. And it's easy to say, oh yeah, I could just make it myself. We all say that. I mean, if I could make fractional plates myself, it'd be cheaper than I could sell them for. But then like eventually you have to market them, package them, sell them, take the fees out. I mean, add your marketing dollars in. You have to charge more than what you could make it for, because that's called profit, So of course you're charging more than you can make it for. And I mentioned before, my biggest point was like, we sell convenience. So you don't have to go buy washers from McMaster Car. You can buy that weigh all different weights, right? You can buy barbell plates for us, for fractional plates that are calibrated within 5 grams. They come to your house in 2 or 3 days. They're ready to go. They're guaranteed for life. They're never going to break, and they're what the weight they say they are. And if that's worth an extra $10, that's worth an extra $10 to a lot of people, or else I wouldn't be in business. But, for some people, they're still going to spend a little less. It's a very different group. There's people that were never going to buy the jack stand, so it didn't matter. They were never going to buy it anyway. There are people that definitely want to make their own stuff. And that's really important because it's just going to spur along new ideas in the future.
Right. What's something that keeps you up at night these days in regards to business?
Probably the 2.5 pound dumbbell plate. It's been so long and I get asked about it so much. I think another thing is just, it's like every day you're afraid like you're not going to sell something, or like the next day is going to be the day that like, oh wait, is this it? Are we over? Or something like that. So definitely going to bed every night thinking about, like I was thinking all last night, I was thinking about when I was laying in bed about this podcast, I have to go then pick up dumbbell plates from my powder coater today because we need them to make dumbbell plates. I think I posted a video the other day of us unloading. I have to go pick up another shipment and like worrying that like the coating isn't going to be right, or worrying that the customers aren't going to like it. We actually have a new coating on this one. It's a little shinier, a little glossier. And then like waiting for like some type of negative feedback to happen, or like a 1-star review on Amazon because someone didn't quite understand or something happened to the product. I mean, those kind of things, especially like customer reviews on stuff, like we hold our products to a really high standard. I wouldn't put it out there if I wouldn't buy it myself. And, you know, we've gotten a lot of praise on a lot of the products that we offer. And, you know, sometimes you're going to get a negative review, and those are the ones that are the tough to swallow. You know, every time I'm like holding my finger over like the checkout customer review button, it's like shaking a little bit, you know, because then you're worried if I get a couple of 1-star reviews, then people aren't going to buy it, because people always go right to the 1-star review. So it's like, we're constantly, I take that feedback and I'm like, how can we make it better so we won't have this review again, or something like that. So I think every entrepreneur spends some sleepless nights just thinking about like the next day of like, you know, is there actually a day that you make it, so to speak? Like, is there one day when you realize, you know what, I made it, like this is the day. Even though I do this full time now, and I've been doing it full time for almost 2 years, actually. I quit back in July 2020 to do this full time. Like, it's still like in the back of your mind of like, what if I have to go back to the grocery store? You know, so like I got to work really hard today to make sure I don't go back to the grocery store.
I feel you. Yeah, that's pretty relatable. Follow up from earlier, you mentioned that if you have a product idea, you're not afraid to buy a small amount and just test the market first. Do you have any products that you actually tested that you didn't end up going forward with?
Yeah, we had a thicker grip dumbbell handle we sold that was made on the axle bar. So it has that 1.9-inch grip. And the problem with it was everybody that bought it didn't have axle collars. So like I only made, I don't know, we probably made 20 of them, maybe more pairs, and they sold okay. They were $100. It was pretty reasonable for what you get. And we had I think I've sold the 20 and then resold the same 20 because everyone would return them because they'd be like, oh, my collars don't work. I'm like, well, yeah, it's a 1.9-inch end and you have to buy axle collars for that, which like making, you know, for me, I'm trying to keep everything made in America. Making those here is like, you know, it's challenging. There's just not a lot of companies making collars in the USA. And I'd actually point them to Rogue because they make axle collars. But then I'm like, hey, listen, by the time you return these, you probably could have bought a pair of collars instead of spending the return shipping or something like that to go back. But yeah, that's one that we shelved. And that's why I was talking about the aluminum one, because that's actually going to be 2-inch. So you're going to be able to use your normal collars with it. We increased the size a little bit, kind of from feedback for that. Trying to think if we had anything else that we had shelved. Nothing else like right off the top. We probably aren't going to sell many more 2.5s, 5s, and 10s after this, or we might go to a different supplier, or maybe go cast or bumper. I'm not really sure yet exactly. So once I sell through those finally, we'll probably not sell those for a little bit. Like it may be worth the incremental sales, but like ordering 100 or 200 at a time and not thousands. Probably for that.
Gotcha. How have you juggled being a family man and a business owner over the past, 6 years now?
It's tough. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you know, you probably think about your business all the time. Like my wife's tired of hearing about it. It was like, you know, it was okay maybe when I was complaining about my other job, but then I'd come home and like I wouldn't really think about it. But now, like, you know, Micro Gainz is on your brain all the time. Like last night, I'm thinking about it. I posted on Instagram last night at like 10:30 p.m. Like I'm answering emails. I answered an email last night at midnight. It's like you're never off with it. My wife and I tried to do a really good job of like taking weekends and being that's really like the family time. And I try to really unplug on Saturday and Sunday, and then just go really hard Monday through Friday, you know, waking up early and working on Micro Gainz most of the day, even still putting in some later evenings. I try to work like a daily schedule out and then come home and try to take my kids to soccer practice, eat dinner, you know, hang out with my wife, play some Fortnite, stuff like that. And, but weekends, I really try to unplug. Like I don't really take a lot of vacations, to be honest. I just like what I do. And I can't tell you how excited I am for Mondays. Like I know it sounds crazy, but I really am excited to get up and get going and get working on this business. I think I enjoy the business part the most. Like I like fitness. I like the space. I like to lift, but I think I just like running a business and the challenges that come with that, the excitement of new stuff every day, and being your own boss and making your own schedule and having that flexibility is pretty freeing. And not a lot of people have it. I think a lot of people want it. And they know that, you know, it took me over 4 years to quit my job. Like it's not easy. A lot of people start in that first 6 months. And if it doesn't work out, they're like, I'm done. You know, I don't know how long. I don't know if you do Garage Gym Experiment full time.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I mean, how long have you been doing it full time?
About a year now, and it was 4 years of
grinding, right?
4 years and yeah, not making any money for
right
first 3 years. Yeah.
Like nothing. Yes.
Right.
And I can completely relate to that. But once again, you really want it. I mean, and you're passionate about it and you've got the drive, and every day you can have your goals laid out, but like know that I might not complete it today. I'm going to try again tomorrow and try again tomorrow. That's a pretty cool feeling for being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Awesome. You actually pretty much answered the last question I was going to ask, which is just what kind of advice would you have for somebody looking to create their own brand and bring it to market? Do you have anything that you would add from what you just said?
I'll recap and say, I think you should come up with some kind of a niche product or adjust an existing product. Maybe you want to come out with 50-pound plates and 30-pound plates and 20-pound plates, and you think that's going to sell really well or something like that, and then you can do what I did. You go back to Amazon or pick out a couple companies, see how much maybe they're selling or get a guesstimate, figure out if there's enough of a business there and think, okay, how can I adjust my product to do better? Get a few made and start testing the market. Sell a few, start on eBay. You don't need a website right away. Start on eBay, get it on Amazon and start to sell a few, and then, reach out to a guy like Jake and send him a product for free and see if they'll talk about it on Garage Gym Experiment. And, I think I sent you my fractional plates, 3-4 years ago now, probably. Like you had those for a while. So way before you were doing this full time. So, and then get in front of people, get on a podcast and start that Instagram and social media because it's free. Like you don't have to pay anything to start a TikTok or an Instagram or a Facebook. You can just start putting up content every day and make it your side hustle for as long as you possibly can. Like you don't want to quit prematurely and then have all this stress built up of just like, not only do you have work stress, but now you have the stress of like, am I going to get paid because I have to sell so many products? So, but yeah, once you come up with that niche and people start to like it, then you can branch off and try other things and add some products to it to become more of a complete company. I think Dylan from AdMat mentioned like a lot of companies are one product and they're like not really companies. They're like, they sell a product. You're not really a bigger company until you start to sell multiple items and you have that more of like that sustainability behind it. But that takes a couple of years, and know that it's going to be a grind, and know that it's not like Instagram, like the models and bottles and the jets and the Lamborghinis and the big homes. Like it's not really like that. I did a video the other day talking about how it's not really like that. I was hand unloading dumbbell plates off the back of my truck in a snowstorm, and I'm the CEO of the company. So it's not like, it's vastly different than you see on TikTok and Instagram, the reality of it, but it's well worth it in the long run.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Definitely appreciate being in the space, and we hope to come out with more cool stuff for everybody that they'll enjoy and get to use in their life to help them build strength and break plateaus.
Cool. Well, to all the listeners, you can follow Mike and Micro Gainz on Instagram, just Micro Gainz, microgainz.com, TikTok. Are you anywhere else?
TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We have a Twitter as well, and then obviously the website. So we're around on social media. Everything's at Micro Gainz. We're pretty easy to find.
Well, again, thanks for taking the time to be here. Great chat, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.